Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. This week I received an invitation to a seminar on artificial intelligence. It read, Artificial Intelligence, AI, is becoming an integral part of our daily lives, sparking both curiosity and concern about its potential and impact. Learn more about this revolutionary technology and what it means for you, the future, the workforce, and the economy. In these days, there's no escaping AI. It's everywhere, in the schools, retail stores, your doctor's office, your mobile phone, your television. Because of AI's reach, even your church may know more about you than you'd like. It's ubiquitous, and I appreciate the opportunity to use that word. I won't go to the seminar, it's in New Jersey, but I don't have to because I know Chris Clayton, one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met when it comes to artificial intelligence. He has designed, implemented, and scaled AI solutions in healthcare, life sciences, oil and gas for Fortune 10 and mid-sized companies. Chris is a partner in Gryphon Citadel, a human-centered management consulting firm with a strong technology focus located in Wayne, Pennsylvania. He has over 25 years of experience in helping clients solve problems using sophisticated technology. Welcome, Chris.
Great to see you.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Gryphon. Yes, okay.
Well done.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate your being here. 30 Minutes here at MNL TV, 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne, accessible on Verizon and Comcast, wherever they are available to subscribers. This is such an important topic. I've covered it before with other folks, but because I know of you and your background, I think you're probably going to do a better job, probably because you're in the consulting business. The other chap was not. It was more of an avocation with him. I'm concerned about it because I'm old. I don't understand most of it. Nonetheless, I'm living in the middle of it, and I really don't know what's going on or what to expect. More to the point, I'm concerned about my kids, my grandkids, and now my great-grandkids. So, I've heard various definitions of artificial intelligence. First of all, I think artificial intelligence is an oxymoron. If it's artificial, it's not intelligence, it's something else. But we choose to call it artificial intelligence. I've heard various definitions of it. What's your definition of artificial intelligence?
Well, I'd like to, if you use the word artificial and just hold on to that word and think about a machine as the artificial component that's really acting as if it has human intelligence. So it's built to display and operate the way our brains and how we would operate. So the ability to reason, the ability to problem solve, the ability to actually understand, perceive, and even make decisions.
But that's just machine learning. I say just, that's machine learning. And are they the same, synonymous,
No.
artificial intelligence and machine learning?
Machine learning is just a method. Artificial intelligence is a completely different thing. I think more of machine learning is it's a mathematical application. It's the ability to actually enforce.
Which is what it used to be.
It used to be, and I think some of the preconceived notions, I think some of the topics we've talked about previously before meeting here, were on things like expert systems, as an example.
Yeah.
Pre-configured, pre-designed, having a specific set of outcomes with very strict guardrails, very specific databases, using machine learning and things to actually look at data to be able to classify, is something occurring? Is this object an apple or an orange? Is it a car? Is it a truck? All of those things are using some form of mathematics, which would be the machine learning component of that. So just like a left brain and a right brain in a human being, left brain being the mathematical cortex versus the right brain and being able to do spatial types of operations. So from that perspective, machine learning is just one part of what we would do as a human being to actually interpret or to calculate something in our heads. Whereas these other topics are more of what makes us uniquely human that are more disturbing in your mind.
I was recently with a group of people, my vintage, older folk, and we were talking about this subject. And one chap, an educated man, scoffed the whole thing. He said, "What's the big deal? It's just another huge database." it's not just another huge database, I said to him, and then we got into a discussion which led nowhere.
Yeah.
So why isn't it just another huge database? Because it is a database, right? You have to input stuff for it to work.
Yeah. It's a lot like human beings, right? So we go through college, we go through all of our life, and we build a repertoire. We develop knowledge and information that sits inside of us, and we use it to discern, to perceive, to make decisions. All of our records that we're collecting over time live inside of us, right? These machines are no different than that. We have to teach them. They have to be educated. So what was before was a lot of code and effort in order to get a machine to actually be able to do all of the things that we just talked about as far as being artificially intelligent. So getting a system to reason 20 years ago is a completely different game now, because you can open up your phone now, use Google, use any one of your browsers and say, I want to learn about any topic. And instead of coming back with results that give you a website, it's now giving you an answer that in many cases is extremely accurate. Mm-hmm. It has an ability to understand through prompting the question you asked to actually know what you're looking for. Whereas before it would just say, okay, Google says put this first because it actually prioritized it by economics, versus what you really wanted to do is learn something about a policy inside of your insurance company and seeing if Reddit or somebody had covered it. Now it goes out to all of its sources and now can come back with information in rapid fashion with accuracy. So the databases are infinite in scale. Infinite.
You used a moment ago the operative word, reason. The system reasons. How does the system reason? Reason is you take in the data, you analyze or review the data, and you come to some conclusion.
Right. That's what a human does.
Essentially, that's what a human does. And you're saying the machine does that, takes in the data, does the analysis, runs it through all the filters, and then comes to some conclusion.
Right.
That's what it does.
Yes.
That's scary. Or it could be scary.
It could be, but it's also, I like to think of it as, it amplifies our ability to actually have what we need to make decisions in our life. And in business especially, the speed at which everything's moving, in order to actually have an edge as a human being, as a person contributing to my organization, as well as contributing to a community, the more access we have to things to amplify our ability to be uniquely human, to take a creative thought and then express it and build upon it. These tools are built to do that. And it's the speed at which I can create inside of my practice now compared to even a year ago is staggering. And the profound impact it's having on productivity it's infinite. So I mean, I look at it from that perspective. So it can be scary because it's something that's unknown for the average person who's not been part of it for 25 years.
It is unknown, but we're learning more about the unknown. Let me go back to 30 years ago, when I was a young man, we were all concerned about cybernetics and the implications of cybernetics, which was simply a machine at the time.
Right.
It's nothing like what we're talking about now. But the concern was it was going to displace principally hourly workers, some white collar, but for the most part hourly workers. And those people would never find jobs again. And all of the doomsdayers were saying millions and millions and millions of people would be displaced. And of course, thousands of people were displaced. But the counter argument at the time was, yes, but there'll be new jobs, better paying jobs, knowledge jobs, that these displaced workers will have the opportunity to take on.
Yeah.
Are we hearing the same debate today? Because, as I sent you the article, a couple of days ago in the Journal, there was an article about some doomsday about the number of people who are being displaced and will continue to, thousands of them. And not just people who are putting bolts and things in boxes. These are people in highly sophisticated jobs. Just look at one industry, the entertainment industry. Screenwriters, all creative people, people who design, people who use a pen and pencil, people who sit at a typewriter or a screen and write, those people are wiped out because the computer can do it faster, better, and less expensively.
Right.
And that's just one industry. Mm-hmm. So is that debate still going on?
That debate is hotter than it ever was. And I actually think that it's more of a reality than it was back then, because computing couldn't do what it could do then. The speed at which we can actually render new applications. I'll give you an example. We built one of my previous company did a very large-scale system in the oil and gas world that actually did reasoning to actually solve or at least help with planning and optimization of a refinery. And it's significant scale of a product. It took years for us to develop, build it, implement it, and get it to operate inside of a very complex environment. We could probably rebuild something like that now in a matter of months. And it would be more sophisticated and more capable. Not because of coding tools and things that we're talking about with automated coding, because getting something to production is a whole different thing than actually having a prototype that looks really cute on a screen. Yeah. Vastly different when you're talking about things that could blow up and people can be harmed. So that is an example. If you were to fast forward now and look at our practice, even with Gryphon Citadel and the types of customers that we're talking to, if you look at my industry, just management consulting, and just do a search on the implications and the expectations from large corporations down into their consulting companies, they're expecting us to actually be using the tools, to demonstrate we're using the tools, and show discount preferences on what we deliver. Yeah. Because they know that what used to take days, weeks, months in order to actually produce reports, PowerPoints, and different types of readouts for executive teams and boards can now be done in millisecond in real time. So it's changed the entire dynamic. And if you look at it, all of the big firms who had very heavy top end, very intellectually capable and powerful people, they're dropping by 20 and 30%. Yeah. So there's a large number of people in this industry.
Except law firms.
Except law firms.
Their fees aren't going down.
Yeah, we'll see. But they're in the head crosshairs of this as well, because there's a lot of the same types of things for due diligence and then reporting and all of it. So same thing. But I do think, and we have written a lot of reports on this, thought leadership pieces that puts the elephant in the room. It's a fact. We're going to have people losing their jobs. Yeah. It's already happening. There's not a lot of reporting on it. It's a fact. But I do believe that there's going to be a really great renaissance for our unique ability for creativity that a machine doesn't have and won't have, in the sense of coming up with new ideas, challenging complete conventions, and the unique ingenuity of us to actually connect dots that even at the speed of our subconscious mind, no computer, even probably a quantum computer, is not going to get there in the instantaneous transfer of information that's in our cortex. It's still not happening. So that unique capability, I encourage my kids who are in school to be looking at these tools, but looking at them as ways to use them as tools to advance themselves instead of thinking of them fearfully. Because there's so much opportunity for us to actually advance the art and science of everything we do.
I don't dispute anything you said. I agree with everything as to the potential and the benefits of humanity. But again, old, vintage. I remember when I walked years ago, and when I'd walk in an elevator, and I knew the elevator operator, and we'd have a conversation, and they even asked me, he or she, how are you doing? How's the family? Yeah. I mean, we've lost that, and that was, at least at the time, so much a part of humanity, our humanity, the interaction with other people every day.
Well, if I could touch on
everywhere, and that's gone.
I would love to touch on that, because I think this is one of those opportunities that I was just kind of loosely referring to. Being human-centered is what we talk about as our claim to fame, and that's what we focus on, is that this disruption is here. You have to tackle it, and we've got to learn ways to actually create better opportunities and optimization of the opportunity to allow us to be human. So we might remove large parts of a process like you're talking about. There may be, the person's no longer in the elevator, but could we have a custodian who's aware of whatever, and being able to actually change your workflows and integrate places where we optimize the opportunity for that touch, that human touch, And we do have that now because we know all the touch points within a business and its delivery model for a product at a consumer level.
Give me one business where they are now compensating for the loss of the human touch.
So I'll give you a perfect example, and you're going to see a lot more of it in healthcare, because I was just at a conference yesterday with CIO of IBX, was actually talking about tools that they haven't let out to the public yet. But how many times are you just sitting there trying to figure out what's covered or not covered in a current visit, or a visit you're going to have,
right,
or a surgery or procedure, and how brutal it is to figure out what's covered, what's not, when it's going to be covered, and being able to get that answer between teleprompters and the phone prompting systems and IVRs, and you're trying to have a conversation with somebody in India who has a dialect issue that's really wonderful, seems kind, but they really don't understand our question because they can't interpret it fast enough, right? That's what we've been living with. We're now in a place in healthcare. IBX gave the example where I know this will work because now you can take these tools off the shelf and start applying them underneath all of the knowledge about your policy. So when you call, it knows who you are already because it's already tracking your phone number. It knows, hey, Rick's on the phone. You should be able to self-serve on the website now without ever having to call anybody or do a chatbot or do any of it. The self-service tools are going to be off the charts accurate.
Get into the trade-offs. I've traded my privacy for that convenience. I'm not sure I want to trade my privacy for that convenience. They already know more than I want them to know about me.
That gets
the system.
That gets to a whole other level of problems with governance and policies at a level of government.
Yes.
And the issue with that, we long gave this away. So I bought my wife a Christmas present right down the corner here from one of the stores. And I was with my kids, and it was a unique book. And this is back in 2014. And I was in this business a long time, right? And I was doing some of that analytics. And they have rules against the information that's allowed to be used. And they call it like zip 3. So I can know as much about Rick, or within zip 3 is the first 3 digits. I can't know where you live. I can't know. Mm-hmm. So just hold all that. I walk out with this unique present, totally unique. And I've never seen anything like it. It was just a little local store. I go home and I'm on my computer. Up comes the ad. In 2014, the exact book. Never seen it before. No. The only way they can do that, they triangulated my credit card information to my cookies on my computer, to my digital profile. This has been going on for a long time.
Yes, but it's getting worse.
What we really need more of is maybe we look at these opportunities to say, I can give you a privacy bot, and I'll create an agent that becomes your representative, your legal representative. And I'm making this up as I'm sitting here. Take that agent, and it serves Rick Anthony and family, and you decide what you're willing to do or not do, and which parts of the EULA agreements that you're signing your life away on, which no one looks at. I want to use that free software. It's not free. You gave away your rights.
Right.
So now the credit card companies and all the different companies have access to who you are, and they're building a profile. They already profiled us. They know everything from the credit card to the bank down to the bottom. So with that, we can use these tools now in order for you to build your own safety. Now it goes back and says how much software. It goes and looks at all your software, reads your EULA and say, what are you willing to accept? Now it can actually go and say, I cancel those. And you give up your free software because you didn't realize that you had to be a PhD in law or have a law firm underneath your wing for free to read a EULA that's 300 pages long and you don't even understand it.
Right.
And that's really unfair for the average human being, even of strong intellect. It's wrong. So there's some issues in that, and it really bothers me too. So
laden with issues. They're all scary, in my opinion. Again, the articles, and they've been coming fast and furious, but the articles now are reporting on instances where these systems are rejecting commands, or going off on their own, or in some instances sending messages to itself so that if and when it's turned off or even destroyed, it'll have a future life and be able to come back. other instances where, and I read of one, I assume it's true, it's in the papers, it must be true,
Yeah.
of where the machine, the system, threatened to blackmail an engineer
Yeah.
who was going to turn off the system, the machine. If these things are true, and again, I'm going to accept that they are, at least on face value, this is pretty scary stuff. This is the machine. It's no longer a tool. Now it's taking command. It's controlling us, and we become subservient to the machines. That seems to be where we're headed in the absence of, and you touched on it, in the absence of some kind of control, some kind of barriers to contain it. However, it seems to be incongruent. How do you contain it? How do you control it? If once it gets, the genie is out of the bottle.
The genie is out of the bottle, that's right. But, it comes back down to ethics. And
what ethics?
when you think about
whose ethics?
So any software company who produces something that, well, first I'm going to talk the initial issue of what you're referring to. It is concerning and it is scary.
Have you heard the same stories?
I've heard them,
others?
but I don't trust a lot of that information until I verified it myself. And because there's a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and complete propaganda being spewed all over the place on purpose to confuse people. And I prefer for all of us to verify. Always trust and verify. You'll hear a new term in technology that they call it zero trust. And you would think zero trust, that sounds odd. Seems the opposite of what you would want it to be. But zero trust means you're verifying who the person is on the phone to protect your privacy. I love that. So that's an example of technology companies that have now enforced new policies to protect each of us. And it's working.
Under duress.
Yeah, and it is working. So you're forcing yourself to actually have multiple ways to validate who you are, and it drives you crazy. Yeah. But it is safer. Some of the things, there's an article that was written a few years ago where a lab with robotics that were militaristic actually went off the rails and shot up the lab. Mm-hmm. There's speculation on whether that was true or not, and whether that was some level of propaganda. I did verify that there's some truth to it. That's scary. What we need to remember is that the systems themselves have guidelines. And what we do as a company is helping our customers think through what boundaries and guidelines you need. So if I like to think of it for us is in the commercial space of how do we take any company that's introducing these new ideas and new technology from a robotics perspective or an AI. So they'll hear this thing, agentic AI. Right. So you're bringing agents to bear that actually do all these things. They can reason, they can solve, they can operate.
What was the word, the phrase?
Agentic AI.
Agentic?
Agentic. So they're demonstrating human characteristics.
I've heard cognitive, but I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, the agentic is a way of actually distributing them and putting them to work in either in isolation by themselves or in coordination as teams. And they're being used in large-scale business now. And there's opportunities for great improvement. But to your point, they can read and write into a source system inside your company. And if you think about it, a large brand that's worth billions of dollars in equity, it could be erased overnight. So it's incumbent upon the organizations who are distributing these technologies, and IBX gave the example, they're doing these tests internally. And letting them be validated before they ever see the light of day that could cause harm to their brand or to you as a consumer, which I love. They're doing all the right things to protect people, but intelligently thinking about how to advance the art of customer service. So to that end, we work intently about guardrails. Right. What is the system allowed to do, under what conditions? And then there's different terms you'll hear, human in the loop, human over the loop, or human out of the loop. Closed systems, you asked the question earlier about reasoning. A closed loop system means that an agent or a system can make the decision on its own. And there are times that's absolutely doable and advisable, and we advise on it. Mm-hmm. But it's mathematically so accurate that you know that the answer is going to be correct and it won't harm anybody. But when you get into harm's way situations, there are times that the machine might do a assess the situation, and it would classify it as fitting a specific scenario, but it can't help you to render a decision. So there's a need to reason. What's the gap in my knowledge? And I'm trying to close it. So the machine can do these things, but what we're actually imposing on this and thinking about and implementing for customers is that there should be a human in the loop anytime there's an open loop opportunity for reasoning. It has to be validated. It has to be overrun by a human to make sure that the information that it's reading is accurate.
I understand what it should be.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about if these systems, I won't even call it a machine because it's beyond machine now.
They feel
if these systems are able to reason, to think for itself, and to act in its own self-interest, as in the case of being resisting a command to shut down, then the genie is out of the bottle. There are no guardrails anymore.
Well, you've hit a good point, Rick. My concern in that one is, and I think to answer the question you originally asked, is that those circumstances, I want to know more detail. These are in lab environments where you're testing the limits of these systems and trying to get them to do things to be able to advance the art of what they're doing. I didn't hear that system is deployed and being used in open environments where a human being is going to interact with them, right?
You probably read about the COVID virus in a lab that got out.
Yeah. So ultimately, the system, we have the ability to pull the plug, right?
This is tantamount to a virus. Once we get at this level we're talking about, again, these aren't machines anymore. These are systems. These are living systems. And they can therefore be viral. One. Two, from what I've been reading and hearing from other people, and this may be, it's space age stuff, that there is something, there is a telepathic capability that some of these systems have. They can read and manipulate your mind. The Russians have it, the Chinese have it, and we have it in the military now. That's all I know about it, except that I know people who can verify that it does exist. Maybe that goes beyond what we're talking about.
Probably, and this goes to the whole thing of how do we govern these things? And if most of the time the government is 15, 20, or 30 years ahead of what we're doing in the commercial space. And if we're really going to look at regulating all this, then we need to be at the table with our governments and understanding what is currently available and accurately and intently putting governance structures around it of how we operate with these things and building ethical boundaries and moral boundaries on them.
So you see the day when there will be a global, multinational code of standards or ethics with regard to AI? And who's going to be the first one to break it?
That's the point. Policing is going to be everything because we have all these policies now and people break them every day.
Work.
So
everybody wants
that's why it's easier to stay in the commercial space. And that brand is everything. And we work with companies about reputation management. Your reputation can be evaporated, and reputation is one of the most important and valuable pieces of a brand.
Used to be.
Most important piece. So if you erode that, you're in danger, right? So implementing these types of tools, it's incumbent upon them to protect that IP for the value of the company, for the board, and for its stakeholders. So from our perspective, we work intently with them to think about how do you build that governance structure to protect that value.
You keep referring to it as a tool. And that's
I don't want to personify these things.
Okay, all right. Okay.
They are tools. They're machines. They do not have a heart and a soul. And
not yet.
Not yet. Well.
You've worked in a number of industries in technology. Is there a single industry that you think can really benefit from the high potential of artificial intelligence or whatever the next iteration is?
I think there's profound opportunities in healthcare, and it's been really difficult. The ethics of it, you have a payer system and you have a delivery system. There can be massive opportunities inside of the healthcare arena for diagnostics and for research that, especially when you look at some of the quantum computing capabilities, we can solve problems in genetics that you couldn't even come close to touching before. So I think there's profound opportunities, but we have conflicts between payer and delivery and legal that basically says if you can't give me explainable, consistent explainable results, and there's a conflict, right? But at the payer level, I've witnessed it because one of my previous companies, we did a lot of work in the payer field.
Yeah.
So we've built, to give you an example where we could go, customized care and being able to actually...
Forgive me, I knew this was going to happen. We would get into it and we'd run out of time.
Yeah.
And we have run out of time. But will you come back?
Yes.
We'll just pick it up.
That'd be fun.
Chris, thank you so much. My guest
Thank
today
you.
has been Chris Clayton, who is in the thick of artificial intelligence. Until next time, I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.